report out of the New York Times signaling that some members of Robert Mueller's own team are not happy with the way Bill Barr has characterized their report. Translation, it could be a lot more damaging than the president led us to believe. Remember a week ago, completely exonerated? Maybe not. I have a great team here to help us understand all of it. But first, I want to get you caught up to speed. We know that Democrats think, and this is no surprise, that there is more to the report than meets the eye. That is why they have been pushing to get it released, even voting for a possible subpoena on Wednesday. But this is the first time that we have heard Robert Mueller's people, who we never hear from, saying they may be onto something. According to the New York Times, quote, some of Robert Mueller's investigators have told associates that Attorney General William Barr failed to adequately portray the findings of their inquiry and that they were more troubling for President Trump than Mr. Barr had indicated, according to government officials and others familiar with their simmering frustrations. But if that is the case, why did they wait 10 days to say something? We do know, are we talking about 2 investigators or 10 investigators, or all of them? That is what we're trying to get to the bottom of. Now, if this is Robert Mueller himself upset about the way his report was being categorized, we don't know that yet. In fact, the New York Times says this, quote, the officials and others interviewed declined to flesh out why some of the special counsel's investigators viewed their findings as potentially more damaging for the president than Mr. Barr explained. So we do not even know exactly what they're complaining about. We do know that they're not happy with it exactly as it was portrayed. I must bring in Michael Scmidt, Pulitzer Prize-winning correspondent for the New York Times, who co-wrote this story. He joins me by phone. Michael, this piece is stunning to me. Did people give you any more specifics about why they think, or not why, what they think Bill Barr misrepresented? Because it has been over 10 days. I do remember when the BuzzFeed report came out and Bob Mueller's team wasn't happy with it. It was within 24 hours they said, mischaracterization. We've now waited over a week.
I think that they wanted, when Barr made his declaration that there was no case against Trump, essentially clearing Trump, that the fruits of their investigation, some of them at least, would be seen, and a fuller picture of the president's conduct would be made public. Now, the issue here is that we're dealing with a very tricky matter of how do you do a criminal investigation into someone who essentially oversees the Justice Department, controls the Justice Department, the president, and here where the Attorney General has determined there's no criminality. Because if, in most cases, when there's no criminality, we don't talk about what has been found in an investigation, and that would sort of be Barr's defense here for why he didn't lay out more of what they found. But at the same time, when you're talking about a president and their conduct in office, there are other equities, Congress, the public, that will want to know what was uncovered and how the president used their power. So what we're seeing here is some of that tension play out. Now, did Mueller's team intend for this to end up in the hands of Congress to assess whether the president broke the law? We're not sure. But what they did think is that Barr essentially cast the die here for the president off the bat and didn't give a full accounting of what they found. All
right, well, nobody is a source for a story just for fun. What, in your estimation, do they hope to accomplish by going public? Do they want their own summaries put out there? Do they want the whole report out?
I think there's a concern amongst some that the narrative will be set about the president's conduct. The president has come out and said that the Mueller report completely exonerates him. That's not true. That's false. But by Barr saying that he cleared the president was able to seize on that. And I think from some of the Mueller side of this, they'd say, hey, why doesn't the country get to see everything that we found about his conduct and take a look at it and have a better sense of what's really going on here and not allow the president to run away with what they think is a false narrative.
Run a victory lap, spike the ball, dunk it, kind of all of them. Michael, amazing reporting. Thank you so much. We've got to go to the White House now, where Kirsten Welker is standing by. Kirsten, we know you've already heard from Rudy Giuliani. What's the buzz over there?
Well, the White House and the president's team, frankly, defiant, pushing back and saying basically what you just said, that if there was some issue with the summary by the Attorney General, that Mueller would have come out already and said, hey, that's not accurate. We just spoke to Sarah Sanders moments ago, and I pressed her on all of this. Here's how she responded. Take a listen.
I have full confidence in the Attorney General and his assessment. He's one of the most respected members of the law community in the country, and I think he's laid out very clearly what his assessment is, and I have full confidence in that. And look, let's not forget, Kristen, let's not forget that the people that have been involved in this process, they've wasted 2 years of their life, and they need to find a way to validate it. They've lost in 2016, they lost on the collusion battle, and now they're looking for any and everything they can to continue to attack this president because they have no message.
And the president equally defiant, casting all of this as playing politics. Let me read you a couple of his tweets from just this morning, Steph. The president tweeting, according to polling, few people seem to care about the Russian collusion hoax, but some Democrats are fighting hard to keep the witch hunt alive. They should focus on legislation, or even better, an investigation of how the ridiculous collusion delusion got started. So illegal, that's his new term, collusion delusion. Also saying there's nothing we can ever give to the Democrats that will make them happy. This is the highest level of presidential harassment in the history of our country. That's significant because, of course, that comes as you have House Democrats saying, look, they are prepared to subpoena the report and the Attorney General to get to the bottom of this. That was passed just yesterday. They say they're prepared to move forward with those subpoenas if they don't get the full report soon. Steph.
My goodness, there's a lot to get through here. I want to bring my panel in. Doug Burns, a former federal prosecutor, David Drucker, senior political correspondent for the Washington Examiner and a contributing writer for Vanity Fair's The Hive, and my friend Jason Johnson, politics editor at TheRoot.com. Doug, I must go to you
Sure.
first. What do you make of the way this came out? Specifically, Robert Mueller has run the most airtight operation you could think of. Every time we show video of him, it's the one and only time we've heard his voice giving a speech at a high school graduation. And now, Jerry Nadler and his team vote yesterday. We know they want the report. It doesn't look like Bill Barr is jumping to give it. And then this comes out.
Criminal law and politics do not mix. I've said it 100 times, okay? So you have the political answers I'm going to give, and then you have the legal answers. Legally speaking, if I went to court and said, Your Honor, I am contending that a summary of a longer document is inaccurate, just so have you read the document? No, Your Honor. I'd be laughed out of the building in 2 minutes. So all of this discussion about he's been inaccurate with the summary is ridiculous. You have to see the report itself. Now, in fairness...
Hold on, I don't understand.
No, in other words...
Who's been inaccurate?
Everybody,
so you're
the
saying
political argument, time out, the political argument that Bill Barr has not accurately summarized the report is essentially absurd legally because you haven't seen the report. So
Democrats who are saying Bill Barr isn't telling the truth, they're wrong because they haven't seen it.
I'm not saying they're wrong.
So that's over here.
I'm saying it's an argument
but there's
you can't
another
make.
political argument. The Republicans who also haven't seen the report can say he's that Robert Mueller has completely exonerated the president.
But in fairness to the New York Times, let's be clear. He's saying people in the investigation itself are saying it's not accurate. That's different, and that's a little more telling. But as everybody sees, if you really read the article closely, it's pretty weak in the sense that they say they were unable to really flesh out, was the term they used, exactly what in there is more damaging to the president. So again, it's a little bit weak. In the end, the point is that...
I still don't understand. What's weak? Who's weak here? Democrats are weak? You've lost me.
In the New York Times article, everybody blares the headline. Mueller people are contending that the report is more damaging to Trump. If you read the full article closely, if you peruse it, the most misused word in English means to read carefully. If you peruse the document, you'll see 3 times it says that the people being interviewed, the officials, were unable to flesh out exactly what is more damaging to the president.
Well,
I know these sound like political sound bites. They're not.
Hold on a second. Is it that they were unable to flesh out? Literally
or unwilling,
or unwilling, and that they're saying, don't put your pencils down, this thing ain't over.
Well, look, I think the political issue here is not what's in the document if and when we ever get to read it.
In the computer.
It's what's in the emails, right? It's about how people interpret it. And I think that the way I like to look at this is, in 2016, after Hillary Clinton was essentially cleared of criminal wrongdoing, a lot of people focus on James Comey's press conference, which did a lot of damage to her. But what did even more damage to her was House Republicans in the majority at the time getting a hold of the investigative notes. Those became public, and it made Hillary Clinton look like a criminal, and it made her look like she was trying to obstruct an investigation and hide things. And that was possibly more damaging than just being indicted and going away, giving the Democrats a fresh candidate. So when we're trying to assess all of this for Trump, the initial letter and summary from Barr certainly are better than the alternative, and certainly give him a position now of strength compared to where he was. But until we know for sure that that is the last thing we're ever going to know about the Mueller investigation, and until we know that that last thing is positive for him and not negative, we can't make a final political assessment, even if we can make a final legal assessment.
I'm going to make this even more basic. Everybody here has had a boss where you worked on a project for months and months and months, and you put it in front of your boss and like, hey, thanks for this. Okay, good. Now, back to the meeting. That's what happened. They're like, I spent 2 years busting my butt on this, not seeing my kids, working with this, that, and the other, and you're telling me you're going to summarize this in 4 pages?
And he just tweeted it out.
Right. They're livid. That is literally what's happening here. And so, like,
no one read their book report.
Nobody read their book report.
Look at the diorama.
They're so mad right now. Mom didn't even look at it. So that's literally what this is. And so I think from a political standpoint, one of the screwy things that Trump has done from the very beginning is, look, they should have released it. The idea of, like, I have magical evidence in my pocket right now that exonerates me, so you don't need to see it, that was never going to fly. And that's what elicited this kind of response.
Do you think it's a coincidence that this came out just after that we saw the vote that we're possibly going to see a subpoena pushing Bill Barr to release it?
No, I think that's a great point. I think a lot of this, and I defer to my colleagues who are more knowledgeable about politics than I am. I mean, I'm a lawyer, but the point is, I think it was designed to precipitate the release of the report, which makes sense. I think nothing wrong with that. I have no objection to that, obviously. And I think that, again, I just find it endlessly interesting as a lawyer. Broken record, my initial point is it's useless to be saying a summary is good, bad, or indifferent if you haven't seen the report.
Also, it's not unusual, as we have learned over the past few years, for investigators to get a little bit perturbed, let's say, about how their work is being interpreted. We saw this during the Clinton investigation, where, you know, FBI agents and investigators said, well, you know, it's not exactly the way she's saying, and they tried to suppress this, and we want to look at that. This is what happens, especially given the feeding frenzy and the reporting that goes along with all of this.
Yes, when they actually, and when their work gets spun on either side.
Right. And for me, there's a public good element to this. And I think this works for Republicans and for Democrats. You are a president of the United States. Your entire life has been questioned. You would want this information out there so that you're cleared. I mean, I just think that makes the most sense. The public actually needs to know.
So in terms of legally, nothing happens from here. I mean, to you, this is just another story. It is what it is.
It's a political storyline. I mean, again, they're theorizing that people within the investigation are unhappy. And I want to make a key point, which I think is also fair, which is a lot of times in an investigation, you're going to have differing opinions, okay? And people are at odds, and we don't like the conclusion. And I think people in there got that line in there about how he's not being exonerated, and that's fair. They wanted that in there. They got it in. It sets up an open discussion about obstruction of justice. But I think it's, you know, it's mostly a political storyline, and I'm just surprised. I mean, I agree with Jason, though. I do. Yeah.
Okay, but then what happens? Let's say the report is released. Do we then spend the next 6 months clicking through every last word, punctuation?
It's going to be sentence deconstruction. Remember when we were kids and they taught us how to construct a sentence? We're just going to go, it's going to be like one of those dishes by some high-powered chef where they deconstruct your This is what we're going to do.
This is going to be the biggest you up text anyone's ever gotten. What does this mean? Does it mean this? Does it mean that's what we're going to do?
I mean, you are taking us basic to another level.
I'm trying.
You are? Yes.
It's a Rorschach test. You see in it what you want to see. I mean, it's that simple. And by the way, there's going to be stuff in there. You know, you get this narrative, but they shouldn't have done that to Hillary Clinton. That's right. They shouldn't. So now what's good for the goose, maybe you shouldn't do it for Trump. But a good point was made by the New York Times reporter, which is this involves potential impeachment and other political aspects.
Right, the president, though,
that's why it's different.
The president may enjoy this in part, though, because there's nothing he likes more than standing up to the man, and that signals to his supporters that he's fighting the so-called swamp, and I'm not going to back down. And so in some ways, I think that's why he continues to tweet about this more than anything else.
Can you help me with that, though? When he
try.
stands up to the man, who is the man he's speaking of? What is the swamp that he's talking about?
Us. All the bad people. Everything. It doesn't matter. People, especially Trump supporters, but even a lot of Democratic voters, are angry at Washington, angry at the establishment, angry at the so-called elites and all the smart people. And anybody that thumbs their nose at them, that's who they're for, and it's cathartic, and they want to see it.
They think he's dirty, and they want him gone.
Very well put.
Well,
succinct.
We're going to leave it there. All right, now we have to turn to